Any woman does not want you to find this video. Some truths unsettle the balance in relationships, not because they are malicious, but because they lift the veil over behaviors that have long remained in the shadows. When I first shared the idea of this video with a few women close to me, some as friends, others as former partners, each one urged me not to move forward, not out of spite or fear, but because they understood that what you're about to hear may alter the way you view the silent patterns that shape attraction and connection. This isn't about blame, nor is it a weapon for manipulation. It's a mirror, offering men a quiet space to reflect on dynamics they may have felt but never fully understood, because behind every unanswered message, behind the warmth that suddenly cools, and behind the emotional shifts that leave you questioning your worth, there are deeply ingrained psychological instincts at play. In today's video, we'll explore the invisible strategies that often define a woman's emotional world. Strategies rooted in protection, social learning, and emotional self-preservation, from the power of strategic silence to the subtle art of emotional mirroring to the quiet construction of inner hierarchies. These are not manipulations, but survival tools shaped over time and culture. If you've ever felt confused, second-guessed yourself, or wondered why connections sometimes feels like a game you were never taught to play, this video will offer clarity. So stay with me until the end, because what you learned today may not only change how you see the women in your life, but it may change how you see yourself. Number 1. The power of strategic silence. In the quiet moments between a woman's words lies a landscape few men are taught to understand. When a woman withdraws into silence, not out of disinterest, but out of intentional reflection, and signals not the end of emotional connection, but the beginning of deeper psychological assessment, her silence is not empty. It is charged with observation, subtle in its force and deliberate in its timing. While he may perceive it as distance, she is not disappearing. She is watching, listening, registering every flicker of response. Silence is not a way to interpret the words of a woman, but to listen rather than interrupt. Over time, silence becomes not a weakness but a mechanism of power. A pause during a disagreement is not merely the absence of argument, it is the creation of a space in which the man's character reveals itself without instruction. In that quiet he is left with himself, and in his responses, whether defensive, anxious, or composed. She reads more than words could ever offer. When she withholds a reply to a message, delays a response after a vulnerable confession, or remains still during a heated exchange. What emerges is not passivity, but an active gathering of emotional data. The tone of his second message, the urgency of his follow-up, the emotional clarity or confusion in his demeanor, all become signals she decodes with a precision that often goes unnoticed. It is here she begins to understand his attachment style, his tolerance for uncertainty, and most importantly, his need for reassurance. In her silence, he reveals his insecurities. In her stillness, his need for control becomes visible. This behavior is not always calculated. Much of it is instinctive, shaped by generations of women who have learned that in a world where words are often dismissed, silence can command greater attention. Silence unsettles not because it is cruel, but because it breaks a pattern. Women conditioned to fix, explain, or persuade are rarely trained to sit with ambiguity. They lean in with apologies, with clarifications, with anxious confessions seeking to fill what feels like a void. Unaware that she is not requesting words but truth, the kind of truth that shows itself when no script is available. A woman does not always need a verbal confession to know what a man feels. She watches how he handles tension. She notes whether he grows louder or quieter, whether his gaze hardens or softens. She listens to the silence between his words. That space tells her who he becomes when he is unsure, when he is vulnerable, when he is momentarily out of control. For many men, this silent pause is unbearable. They experience it as a test, and in some sense it is but not a test designed to trap or punish. It is a test of steadiness. A woman's silence used strategically or unconsciously offers her clarity. It grants her time to see not what he says under pressure, but how he holds himself in uncertainty. Silence, then, is not a wall. It is a mirror. It reflects to him his anxieties, his sense of self-worth, and his need for validation. And through this she gains insight into the kind of emotional foundation that underlies his outward presence. The men who understand this do not rush to fill the space. They do not perform. They wait calmly, with a self-possession that speaks for itself. These men signal something rare, emotional maturity without dependency. The most effective communication between a man and a woman does not always happen through language. It happens in the restraint, the breath between thoughts, the steady presence in a moment that demands patience over performance. A woman may not always say what she wants immediately, but she is always noticing whether a man can handle the weight of what she leaves unsaid. Number 2. The mysterious art of emotional mirroring. There is a kind of social intelligence at play in nearly every emotionally charged conversation between a man and a woman. Something fluid, yet intentional, intuitive, yet strategic. It doesn't announce itself loudly, but manifests quietly in the cadence of a woman's voice, the rhythm of her responses, and the atmosphere she builds around each interaction. This is emotional mirroring, not simply a gesture of empathy, but an intricate form of emotional choreography, where a woman attunes herself to the mood of the moment and reflects it with a tailored precision, unlike blunt expressions of interest or rejection. Emotional mirroring unfolds in layers. A woman seated across from a confident entrepreneur might become animated, matching his passion with vivid curiosity and a quickened voice. Minutes later, in conversation with a reserved academic, her tone lowers, her gestures calm, and her words become deliberate. This adaptation is rarely accidental. It is a socially evolved skill, one that both fosters closeness and quietly gathers information. Such mirroring achieves two goals at once. First, it builds rapport. When a woman matches a man's emotional state, she creates the illusion of synchronicity, a feeling that the two of them somehow just click. This synchronicity, in turn, disarms him. He begins to speak more openly, not realizing that the emotional comfort he feels is being intentionally cultivated. Second, while the connection is being built, a subtle assessment begins. The way a man responds to her shifts, whether he leads or follows emotionally, whether he sharpens or softens in the face of mirrored emotion, provides her with psychological data without needing to ask directly. He can gauge his emotional fluency, his ego structure, and the unspoken needs he might carry. This quiet art is not necessarily manipulative, rather it is adaptive. Emotional mirroring is how many women explore emotional safety and relational potential without risk of rejection or confrontation in environments where vulnerability can be dangerous or misinterpreted. Emotional mirroring offers a veil behind which truth can be both given and received. The mirrored tone becomes a way to say, "I understand," without committing, "I agree." It allows her to invite a man's truth out into the open, all while deciding whether that truth is something she can trust, respect, or desire for the man unaware of this dynamic. The experience can feel mysteriously magnetic. He senses compatibility, perhaps even intimacy, but may not understand how it was built so quickly. If he mistakes emotional alignment for emotional investment, he risks confusing connection with commitment. A woman's ability to reflect what he offers does not always mean she has moved by it. It may only mean she is observing it more closely. In a culture where superficial signals are often misread as signs of attraction, emotional mirroring stands apart. It's not the laugh at a joke or the lean toward a conversation that reveals depth. It's the fluid way a woman navigates emotional tones, slipping from warmth to reserve, from openness to analysis, all while maintaining a steady inner awareness of the man's patterns. If he reacts too quickly, she notes impulsiveness. If he withdraws, she detects insecurity. If he remains consistent, grounded, even as her tone evolves, she begins to trust his center. This psychological dance is why some women seem to develop instant connections with many, yet commit to few. Their emotional language is fluent, but their trust is selective. And so to understand a woman's emotional mirroring is to understand not just how she connects, but how she decides what she responds to, what she resists, and what she ultimately respects. The mirroring, then, is both invitation and investigation, a signal of presence and a test of presence returned. Number 3. The secret ranking system. Now, let's pull back the curtain on one of those hidden dynamics that shapes almost every interaction you'll ever have with women, whether they admit it or not. The secret ranking system. Yes, it's real. And no, she'll never tell you about it. In fact, most women aren't even consciously aware they're running this system in the background. But once you understand how it works, you'll see it everywhere, and you'll stop falling for one of the most common traps that keep men stuck. Here's the core truth. In her mind, whether she's known you for 5 minutes or 5 years, you're always somewhere on her internal ranking of men. It's not just a "do I like him or not" thing. It's far more nuanced. Imagine it like this. At the top of the list, the rarest spot is the man who commands deep respect and attraction. He's the one who moves with purpose, whose presence triggers curiosity and desire. He's unpredictable. He's emotionally centered. And he's not trying to win her approval. Just below that, the men she sees as potential. They've sparked some interest, but she's still testing them, still unsure whether they're truly the kind of man she can admire. Lower down, the comfort zone guys. The ones she enjoys attention from, but doesn't take seriously. The ones she'll text when bored. The ones she might flirt with for validation, but who never feel like real options to her. And beneath that, the invisible category, the men she flat out ignores. Now here's the kicker. Most men assume this ranking is based on looks, money, status. It's not. It's based on behavior, especially under pressure. And that's why it shifts constantly. If you start chasing too hard, if you become reactive, if you show emotional neediness, if you fail her unspoken tests of leadership, you slide down that ranking fast, sometimes overnight. On the other hand, when you lead with calm strength, when you embody masculine presence, when you stop seeking validation, you rise. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. And here's the deeper part of this secret. Women won't tell you where you stand. In fact, they'll often act in ways that confuse you because their words and behaviors are tests, not direct communication. She might flirt, but avoid spending time with you. She might open up emotionally, but resist physical intimacy. She might say, "You're amazing," but only see you when convenient. And if you don't understand this ranking system, you'll chase harder, thinking you just need to prove yourself. But that's the trap, because the more you try to climb, the more you signal low status. Why? Because true high-value men don't chase rankings. They lead their own lives, and as a result, they rise in women's eyes. It's counterintuitive but incredibly powerful once you grasp it. Here's a simple example. A man meets a woman, there's instant chemistry. But after the first few dates, she starts pulling back. Most guys sensing the shift try harder, more texts, more plans, more reassurance, and in doing so they drop down the ranking. Why? Because they've shown attachment to outcome they're no longer centered. Now imagine the Stoic path. The man notices the shift, but remains calm. He steps back. He keeps building his life. He's indifferent to whether she chooses him because he knows his value isn't up for debate. That man rises. She feels the contrast. And often she comes back testing again. Because here's the final truth. Her secret ranking system is fluid. It updates constantly based on how you show up. And when you master this understanding, you stop reacting. You stop chasing approval. You stop falling for mixed signals. You lead with strength, clarity, and indifference. So are you ready to rise in the only way that matters? If you are, comment below, I lead my life. Because, coming up next, we'll uncover another hidden layer, one that explains why women slow things down physically, and how understanding that unlocks real power. Number 4. The psychology of sexual gatekeeping. Now let's pull the veil back on something that trips up more men than almost anything else, because on the surface it seems personal, when in reality it's deeply psychological. Sexual gatekeeping. Yes, it's real. And no, it's not about playing games. It's not about teasing or punishing you. It's about an instinctive strategy that has been running in female psychology long before the modern world ever existed. Here's what most men never understand. When a woman controls the pace of physical intimacy, slows things down, sets boundaries, pushes pause after early moments of chemistry, she's not always doing it because she's unsure about you. She's doing it because it protects her value. See, here's the core truth. Throughout human history, the cost of intimacy for women has been higher than for men. Biologically, emotionally, socially, it carries more risk. And so over time, women developed mechanisms to control access to which men truly deserved deeper connection, and which men didn't. Enter sexual gatekeeping. And here's where it gets really interesting. Even today, in an era of casual dating, swiping apps, and endless situationships, this instinct is still active. Even the most confident modern woman will unconsciously run this process. She slows down to test. Can he handle delayed gratification? Does he chase harder when denied? Does he become reactive when blocked? Does he respect boundaries or push past them? Does he stay centered, or does frustration leak out? Every one of these moments tells her volumes about your true nature, not the image you project. Because here's the brutal truth. Any man can act smooth when things are going his way, but only a grounded man stays calm when the pace changes. And that's exactly what she's looking for. Not because she's cruel, but because she needs to know, if I give him access, is he truly strong enough to handle it? Most men fail this test, and they don't even realize it. They get frustrated, they push, they sulk, they withdraw affection, or they overcompensate, trying harder to win her back. And in doing so, they reveal weakness, neediness, lack of emotional control. Marcus Aurelius taught, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it. And when you lose control of your frame during these moments, that's exactly what happens. But the man who understands this dynamic, who sees sexual gatekeeping not as rejection, but as a form of vetting, plays a very different game. He stays calm. He remains indifferent to pace. He respects her boundaries not to get the prize, but because he lives from purpose, not from outcome. And here's what happens when you show up this way. You rise massively in her internal ranking. You demonstrate strength. You show leadership of your own emotions, which for her equals safety and deep attraction. Because ultimately, she wants to be able to surrender to a man who won't collapse under pressure. and nothing tests that more than the early dance of pace and intimacy. So the next time you feel the pull to fix the dynamic or to force the moment, stop, breathe. Remember, she's not blocking you, she's testing you. Pass that test and the game changes. So, are you ready to lead from strength, not impatience? If you are, comment below, I stay grounded. And stick around, because up next we'll pull back the curtain on one more layer. One, women rarely admit how they use male competition to quietly control the frame. You'll want to see this. Number 5. The manipulation of male competition. This one is subtle, but once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Let's talk about one of the most common and most powerful ways women quietly shift the balance of attraction. By manipulating male competition. Now, I'm not saying this is evil or calculated. In fact, in most cases, it's instinctive. But make no mistake, it works. And if you're not aware of it, you'll find yourself caught in a dynamic that slowly erodes your frame without you realizing why. Here's how it happens. At some point, early or late in your connection, she signals directly or indirectly that other men are also in her orbit. Maybe it's as obvious as mentioning an ex texting her. Maybe it's a casual comment about a guy at work being funny. Maybe it's posting a certain kind of picture knowing full well it will get a reaction from thirsty guys, and you'll see it. Or maybe it's more subtle, delaying plans while being mysteriously busy, mentioning a friend she's seeing later without clarifying, responding slowly but actively posting on socials. And here's where it hits. Most men, without understanding what's happening, become reactive. They start competing, trying harder, sending more texts, pushing for reassurance, trying to lock it down. But what they don't realize is this: that was the test. Not to see if you'd win the competition, but to see if you'd even enter it. Because here's the truth: when a man competes for a woman's attention, he lowers his perceived value. Not because competition itself is bad, but because the moment you shift your energy into beating other men, you're no longer leading. You've put her and her choice at the center of your frame. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." That's the core here. A grounded man, a stoic man, doesn't get pulled into silent battles for validation. He leads his life, he chooses from abundance, and he never chases what seems uncertain, because he knows this: if a woman truly desires you, she eliminates the competition herself. She clears space for you, she makes the path easy, she chooses clearly. If you find yourself having to win her away from other men, you're already losing, and women know this even if unconsciously. The ones who mention other guys, or subtly make you feel like you need to prove yourself. They're watching how you respond. If you get jealous, if you chase harder, if you try to lock her down, she'll feel it and your rank will drop. But if you stay grounded, if you lean back and let her do what she wants while you continue leading your own life, now the energy shifts. You demonstrate abundance, you reveal security, you project power. And ironically, that's when her interest grows. Because here's the deepest layer. Women don't actually want to manage multiple men. They want to select the man who doesn't need to compete. Because that man, the one who won't play the game, is the man who's already won. So the next time you notice subtle signs of competition being introduced, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, am I being pulled into a frame that's not mine? If you can hold your center and walk away when needed, you'll not only protect your peace, you'll raise your value in her eyes, often more than any winning move could. So, are you ready to lead from that place? If you are, comment below, I lead my frame. And next we'll go even deeper into one of the darkest secrets of female psychology, one they rarely admit even to themselves. Stay sharp. Number 6. The one thing she'll never admit about her attraction. Now let's dig into one of the deepest and most hidden forces behind her attraction. It's something that influences her choices, her feelings, her behavior, and yet she'll never openly admit it. In fact, in most cases, she isn't fully conscious of it herself. What is it? She is more drawn to how you make her feel about herself than to anything you say or do about her. Let that sink in. Yes, your looks matter. Yes, your communication, your vibe, your style, all these things play a role. But at the core of it, her deepest attraction is driven by this. How does she feel about herself when she's around you? This is the one thing most men completely miss. And once you understand it, you'll see why so many guys get stuck trying to say the right thing or do the right thing and still fail. Because attraction isn't logical, it's emotional, it's subconscious. And at that level, her mind is constantly scanning. When I'm near him, do I feel more desirable? Do I feel feminine? Do I feel elevated or diminished? Do I feel more alive? And this is why certainty in a man is so powerful. Not arrogance, not fake bravado, but calm-rooted certainty, the energy of a man who knows who he is. When a woman feels that, she responds, because in that presence she can relax. She can lean into her feminine side. She can feel elevated not because you gave her compliments, but because your vibe itself raises the emotional energy of the interaction. And here's the secret layer she'll never admit. This is what hooks her more than words, gifts, or effort. She might say she likes compliments. She might say she loves when guys pursue her. She might say, I want a man who treats me like a queen. But none of that matters if being around you doesn't change how she feels about herself. That's why some guys who do everything right end up in the friend zone. And why other men who say very little but lead with calm presence leave a lasting impact. Because it's not about checking boxes. It's about creating emotional elevation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And that's the same with attraction. Her conscious mind may think it's about lists or logic, but her subconscious is always chasing feeling. Now here's where most men go wrong. They try to give her the feeling directly. Too many compliments, too much validation, oversharing emotions. And in doing so, they collapse their own frame. Because the moment a man makes a woman the center of his emotional world, she feels it. And instead of elevation, it triggers pressure. It triggers loss of mystery. It makes her feel less about herself, not more. That's the paradox. She's most attracted to men whose presence elevates her without needing to force it. And you do this not by chasing her approval, but by leading your own life, grounded in purpose. When a man radiates calm purpose, when his energy is full, not needy, a woman steps into his space and feels lifted. Her mood shifts, her confidence increases, her sense of femininity grows. And here's the part she'll never say. That's what keeps her thinking about you. That's what keeps her coming back. That's what creates the kind of craving no text or gift can ever match. So are you leading with that energy, or are you trying to win her with words and actions? If you're ready to shift the game, comment below, I elevate the room. And stay tuned, because next we'll pull back another layer of attraction, how women use attention itself to maintain invisible power over men, and how you can break free from it once and for all. Number 7. How she uses attention to control men. Now let's get brutally honest about something most men experience, but rarely recognize for what it is. Women use attention, giving it, withdrawing it, modulating it to control men, not always with malicious intent. In many cases it's unconscious, a deep-rooted mechanism that evolved long before dating apps and text messages. But once you understand it, you'll stop falling for one of the oldest traps in the book. Here's what most men don't get. For women, attention is a form of currency. It's value, it's leverage. It's a way of steering interactions without ever needing to be direct. And the key isn't just how much attention she gives you, but when and how inconsistently she gives it. In fact, inconsistency is the most powerful part of this dynamic. Think about it. You meet her. She's warm, engaged, playful. You feel momentum building. You start imagining where this could go. And then silence. A day or two of coldness. A delayed reply. Suddenly she's busy. No explanation. And your brain, it lights up. You start thinking, what happened? Did I do something wrong? How do I get her attention back? That mental loop isn't random. It's triggered by the sudden withdrawal of attention. And this is exactly how control begins. Because once you're thinking about her more, once you're subtly chasing that lost attention, she's in your head. And as long as she's in your head, you're no longer fully in your frame. Now here's where it gets deeper. Women consciously or not instinctively learn how to feed this loop. Giving small bursts of attention, withdrawing again, dropping breadcrumbs, then going cold, then suddenly warm again. It creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates obsession. Because the human mind craves closure, it hates unfinished emotional business. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But if you're not aware of this dynamic, you'll surrender that power to her attention cycle. You'll start thinking, I need to do something to get her back. Maybe if I send the right message. And now without knowing it, you're being controlled. Because your behavior is no longer led by your own mission, it's reactive. And this is where so many men lose value fast. Not because they're bad men, not because they lack attraction, but because they're pulled out of their center, into her frame. Now here's the hard truth. The more a man chases uncertain attention, the less attractive he becomes. Because now he signals lack of abundance. He signals neediness. He signals emotional instability. And in her eyes, that's low value. But here's the opportunity. When you recognize this game, when you stop taking it personally, you regain power. You stop chasing breadcrumbs. You stop needing constant signals. You lead yourself regardless of her attention patterns, and that energy is rare. That's why the man who is indifferent to inconsistent attention becomes the one she can't control. And ironically, that's the man who draws her in the deepest. Because here's the layer she'll never say. Once a man proves he won't dance for attention, her respect for him skyrockets. And respect is the foundation of real attraction. So ask yourself, have you been trapped in an attention loop? Or are you ready to step out and lead from strength? If you are, comment below, I lead myself. And stay sharp, because next we'll expose one of the deepest hidden truths, why her tests are never really about love, and how understanding this flips the entire dynamic in your favor. Number 8. Why her tests are never about love. Now this is going to flip the way you think about attraction and save you from a lot of frustration. Her tests are never about love. Let that sink in. Because too many men assume that when a woman is testing them, pulling back, acting cold, throwing emotional curveballs, it must mean she doesn't love them or that she's trying to push them away. Wrong. Most of these behaviors have nothing to do with love and everything to do with security. You see, love is a feeling. Tests are about safety and selection. They are two entirely different systems running in her psychology, and most guys confuse them. Here's the deeper truth. A woman can feel love, deep love, for a man, and still test him. She can feel incredible connection, and still throw him challenges. She can want him deeply, and still create distance at times. Why? Because attraction triggers her biological drive to filter for strength. It's not personal, it's not evil, it's primal. You see, at her core, a woman wants to know, is this man strong enough to lead me? Is he stable when life is not? Will he collapse if I get emotional? Does he crave my validation, or is he centered in himself? And the only way she can find out is through tests. Because any man can act high value when things are easy. Anyone can be charming when there's no tension. But what happens when the energy shifts? When she withdraws affection for a few days? When she throws an emotional storm? When she talks about other guys casually? When she questions his choices? That's where the truth shows. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that's exactly what she's watching for. She's not testing because she hates you. She's not testing because she wants to hurt you. She's testing because her psychology needs to feel safe surrendering. And that safety isn't about words. It's about emotional leadership. Here's the problem. Most men see tests and take them as attacks on their worth. They get reactive, they chase, they explain, they plead, they try to prove they're good enough. And every time they do, they fail the test. Not because they're bad men, but because they show a lack of center. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Her tests are not about love because love alone isn't enough. She might love a man's humor, she might love his looks, she might love his charm. But if she can't trust his emotional leadership, she won't fully surrender to him. And this is why so many relationships collapse even when love is present. Because over time, if a man fails test after test, her respect erodes. And without respect, attraction fades. But when a man passes these tests by staying calm, grounded and purpose-driven, something powerful happens. Her trust deepens, her respect grows, and her love shifts from emotional whim to emotional bond. That's the game. But here's the catch. You can't learn lines to pass tests. You can't memorize responses. You have to be the man who passes them naturally. Through inner work, through stoic discipline, through building your frame every day. Because the man who lives in purpose, who holds his center, no matter the storm, eventually transcends the need for tests, and that is when she fully surrenders. So ask yourself, are you reacting to her tests, or are you leading yourself and letting her feel your strength? If you're ready to shift, comment below, "I lead from within." And next we'll unlock an even deeper secret, why some women keep certain men circling, even when they say it's over. Stay with me. Number 9. The secret reason she keeps you in her orbit. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating dynamics men face. You're not with her anymore. She says she's moved on. She says it's better this way. Maybe she's seeing someone new, or says she needs space. And yet somehow you're still in her orbit. You see her watching your stories. She randomly texts, "How have you been?" She sends a meme late at night. Or worse, she pops up the moment you start moving on. And you think, why is she doing this? What does she want? Here's the part most men don't understand and most women will never admit. It's not because she loves you. It's not because she wants you back. And it's not about closure. It's about power. More specifically, she doesn't want to lose her place in your emotional world. You see, when a woman knows you still think about her, when she senses you're still attached, when she feels she can still trigger a reaction from you, positive or negative, she knows this, I still matter to him. And that's a kind of power. Not cruel power, but human nature. It affirms her value. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But when your mind is still circling her, she knows it. And this is why Many women keep men in their orbit because as long as you stay emotionally tethered, she remains relevant in your life. She holds invisible status. She maintains leverage even if she's the one who ended things. And this creates a pattern. You start to detach, you stop chasing, you pull back, and then her attention spikes. A message, a comment, a like on a post from months ago. Not because she wants to rebuild the relationship, but because she senses the shift and instinctively tries to pull you back into orbit. And here's where men get trapped. They read these signals as signs of hope. Maybe she's changing her mind. Maybe we still have a chance. But in most cases, it's not about that. It's about her not wanting to lose her place in your world. Because here's a truth few will say: it's easier for a woman to move on if you remain below her emotionally, if you're still hung up on her, if she knows you'd drop everything for a text, if you're stuck. But when you truly detach, not with bitterness, but with inner peace, it disrupts that comfort. Suddenly, why isn't he reacting? Why is he moving on? Why do I feel this pull now? That's the game. And the man who understands this dynamic leads himself out of it. He doesn't chase breadcrumbs. He doesn't respond to random late-night texts. He doesn't fall for the old patterns. He sees it clearly. The only way out of her orbit is to stop orbiting yourself. When you reclaim your mind, when you refocus on your mission, you become emotionally sovereign. And ironically, that's when she often chases hardest. Because the man who no longer needs to be in her world becomes the man she now wants back in it. But here's the key. You must walk away without expectation. Not to win, not to teach her a lesson, but because your peace matters more than the game. And that shift, that internal transformation, is what flips the dynamic. So ask yourself, are you stuck in her orbit, or are you ready to lead your own? If you are, comment below, "I choose freedom." And stay with me, because next we'll expose the deepest trigger of all, the one desire that quietly drives female attraction, and why few men ever unlock it. Number 10. What truly turns her on but she'll never tell you. Let's finish with a truth so deep. Most men will never hear it from a woman's mouth. What truly turns her on is not what you do for her. It's who you are when you no longer need her. And no, she won't tell you this. Not because she's hiding it, but because often she doesn't fully understand it herself. You see, most conversations about attraction stay surface level: looks, status, charm, being nice, being alpha. But these things only open the door. They don't unlock what triggers her at the core, that deep, almost uncontrollable draw toward a man. So what does emotional sovereignty? A man who no longer craves her approval, a man who is whole with or without her, a man who leads his life, not for a reaction, but because it's aligned with who he is. That is the deepest turn-on. Here's why attraction at its core is about polarity: masculine, feminine, grounded, emotional, leader, follower. And a man who has reclaimed his frame creates that polarity effortlessly. When a woman steps into the space of such a man, she feels it. She can relax. She can let go. She can be led, not forced, but invited into a space of deeper connection. And here's the secret. She will never say, "I want a man who doesn't need me," because consciously it sounds wrong. But subconsciously, that's what her entire nervous system responds to. Why? Because only that kind of man can provide the emotional safety she craves. The man who won't collapse if she tests him. The man who won't chase if she pulls away. The man whose world doesn't shrink if she rejects him. The man who won't compromise his mission for comfort. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And when your thoughts are no longer dominated by her attention, when you live from purpose, your presence shifts. It becomes magnetic, not through effort, not through tricks, but because you are a man of value to yourself. And that is rare. In a world where most men chase, overgive, and fold at the slightest sign of withdrawal, the man who stays grounded becomes irresistible. Why? Because he represents what she's looking for without knowing how to ask. A man she can trust, a man she can admire, a man who is a challenge not because he plays games, but because he cannot be controlled. That is what truly turns her on. And the more you embody this, the more she responds in ways she won't even understand. More softness, more openness, more pursuit, not forced but genuine. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing to make her feel something, she begins to feel everything. Because the deepest attraction isn't triggered by what you do. It's triggered by who you are in every moment. So, ask yourself, are you chasing validation or are you building yourself? Are you hoping to win her over, or are you already living in alignment with your purpose? Because when you choose the latter, that's when you become the man she won't forget. Not today, not a year from now, not even when someone else is by her side. That's the level we aim for, and you can choose it. And that's what separates the men who stay trapped in these invisible dynamics from those who rise above them. If today's video gave you something to think about, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're ready to go deeper, where we break this all down and apply it to your life, join the Stoic Brotherhood. You'll be surrounded by men walking the same path. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, and I'll see you right here again tomorrow.